Every locker door had their face taped to it. Every trip to the newsstand was a hunt for the newest poster or magazine with her on the cover. These women, they were perfection. The kind of beauty that wasn't filtered or photoshopped. It was all natural, untouchable, and unforgettable. Kelly Kapowski with that smile that could stop traffic. Phoebe Cates with eyes that made every guy forget how to breathe. Paulina Poriskova, she was more than a supermodel. She was the dream you'd flip through in glossy pages, wondering how someone could look that pretty. It wasn't just their looks, though. They had a presence, a confidence. They weren't trying too hard, and that's what made them even more magnetic. You'd catch a movie, rewind the best scenes 100 times, and fantasize about meeting them someday. You don't see that anymore. These days, it's all filters and fake perfection. But back then, these women defined beauty, and they've left a mark that no one else can replace. Let's take a journey. The icons Gen X grew up admiring and dreaming about. Let's start with Phoebe Cates, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. You know the scene I'm talking about, the one that made an entire generation of guys forget how to breathe. That red bikini, the slow walk, the pause button on the VHS getting worn out. It was perfect. It was simple, striking, and impossible to forget. A scene that felt more real than Hollywood ever dared to be. Let's talk about Kathy Ireland. She ruled the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issues like no one else. You remember those glossy covers, the waves crashing behind her, that glowing tan, and her girl next door smile that made every guy wish he lived next door. Her style wasn't about pushing boundaries, it was pure, classic, and utterly unforgettable. Whether lounging on a beach or flashing that perfect grin, Kathy captured the innocence and allure of a simpler time. The 80s weren't complete without her. Next up, Susanna Hoffs had us all mesmerized. Whether swaying her hips in Walk Like an Egyptian or stealing the screen in The All-Nighter, her doe eyes and mischievous smile made her unforgettable. She wasn't over the top. Her beauty was subtle, her style cool, and her charm undeniable. That beach scene, the oversized shirt, the ocean breeze, and Susanna looking effortlessly stunning. It was burned into every Gen X guy's memory. She made the 80s magical, one guitar riff and sly grin at a time. But good morning and good night. Sophie Marceau, ladies and gentlemen. Holy moly. Just look at her. Those photos of her from La Boom and beyond, absolute perfection. She had this effortless, natural beauty, innocent yet magnetic, that made her every guy's dream. She was art, pure, untouchable elegance with a French flair that made her stand out from anyone else. I mean, come on, there's nothing more pure than this. Remember the woman in red? Kelly LeBrock. That iconic red dress, the wind blowing, and her magnetic presence that stopped time. Or in Weird Science, as the ultimate fantasy woman created in a teenage experiment. LeBrock had the perfect mix of elegance and sensuality, with that British accent adding an extra layer of allure. She was the dream girl of the 80s. She was every Gen X guy's ultimate fantasy. For the older Gen X crowd, Tawny Kitaen was the ultimate rock goddess. Her sultry moves and Whitesnake's Here I Go Again video. Unforgettable. Draped across those cars, flipping her hair like she owned the world. Every teenager's jaw hit the floor. Remember that Coca-Cola commercial? Cindy Crawford steps out of the car, white tank top hugging her frame, cut-off denim shorts showing just enough, grabs a Coke, and everything else in the world stopped. It was 1992, and that moment didn't just sell sodas. It defined an era of beauty and style. The way she moved, the breeze catching her hair, and the casual confidence as she took that sip. Every detail burned into memories. That commercial wasn't about Coca-Cola. It was about Cindy Crawford, commanding the screen and leaving the rest of us completely awestruck. Jessica Hahn was a storm that rocked the 80s, known for her connection to one of the biggest televangelist scandals of the decade.
Would you like to hear women confessing their deepest, darkest secrets?
Women.
Her beauty turned heads even as headlines swirled. With her wild hair, sultry gaze, and undeniable charm, Jessica quickly became an icon of controversy and allure. Vanessa Williams broke barriers and hearts in equal measure. Crowned Miss America in 1983, she became the first Black woman to hold the title, a historic moment that turned sour with scandal. But Vanessa didn't just bounce back, she soared. With a voice like silk and beauty that left everyone speechless, she redefined success. Her hits like Save the Best for Last and her acting career showcased a talent that couldn't be dimmed. Heather Locklear, with her flowing blonde hair and million-dollar smile, was TV royalty. As Amanda Woodward on Melrose Place and Stacey on TJ Hooker, she was the reason so many of us tuned in. Her outfits were classic 80s, sharp blazers, mini skirts, and that irresistible confident strut. She had that California glow, effortlessly blending girl-next-door charm with vixen energy. Every Gen X guy had a crush on Heather, and let's be real, so did half the girls. Apollonia Kotero was unforgettable from the moment she appeared in Purple Rain. Riding on a motorcycle with Prince, she exuded a sultry allure that left us all hypnotized. Her leather outfits, bold makeup, and smoldering eyes gave her an edge no one could resist. That lake scene? Enough said. Apollonia wasn't just a character in a movie, she became a symbol of the sexy, rebellious spirit of the 80s. Christina Applegate, as Kelly Bundy on Married with Children, was every Gen X guy's dream girl. Her big hair, tight dresses, and sassy comebacks made her unforgettable. She had the perfect blend of humor and jaw-dropping beauty. In the late 80s and early 90s, Christina wasn't just on TV, she was a cultural phenomenon. Whether rocking acid-wash jeans or a slinky mini dress, she brought a confident sex appeal that no one could ignore. Samantha Fox was a British sensation. Her blonde locks, sultry pout, and undeniable curves made her a global icon. Hits like Touch Me didn't just dominate the charts, they dominated our imaginations. Every teen had her posters plastered on their walls, and her daring outfits, leather jackets, plunging tops, and thigh-high boots, cemented her place in 80s pop culture. She wasn't just a singer, she was the fantasy. Kelly Preston had a glow that made every scene brighter. From Mischief to Twins, her beauty was natural and radiant, the kind that didn't need special effects. Her roles often made her the girl next door we all wanted to meet but felt was way out of our league. With her soft curls and sun-kissed skin, Kelly represented everything sweet about the 80s. Watching her on screen felt like catching a glimpse of perfection. Kelly Kapowski was the crush that defined a generation. Played by Tiffany Thiessen on Saved by the Bell, she was everyone's dream high school girlfriend. Her crop tops, denim skirts, and cheerleader outfits became iconic, and her bubbly smile melted hearts every Saturday morning. Every Gen X guy imagined walking her to class or sitting with her at the Max. Kelly Kapowski wasn't just a character, she was a symbol of everything innocent and fun about the early 90s. Catherine Bach made the Dukes of Hazzard a must-watch for more than just car chases. Those iconic Daisy Dukes she rocked became a cultural phenomenon, redefining sex appeal in the late 70s and early 80s. Her long legs, big hair, and effortless charm made her every Gen X guy's ultimate country dream. Bach wasn't just a pretty face, she embodied a mix of playfulness and confidence. Whether she was fixing cars or outsmarting villains, she was always turning heads in that famous denim. Heather Thomas was the epitome of 80s TV glamour. As Jody Banks on The Fall Guy, she combined stunning looks with a daring attitude that left audiences hooked. Her bright blonde hair, dazzling smile, and killer wardrobe made her one of the most iconic pinup stars of the decade. Her posters were everywhere: bedrooms, locker rooms, and even garages. Michelle Pfeiffer had a presence that made everyone stop and stare. Whether as Elvira in Scarface or the unforgettable Catwoman in Batman Returns, she brought a mix of beauty, mystery, and raw talent that few could rival. Her sleek blonde hair, piercing eyes, and perfectly tailored outfits made her the epitome of elegance. Michelle wasn't just another pretty face. She was Hollywood royalty, exuding both power and vulnerability that kept Gen X glued to the screen. Teresa Russell was the kind of beauty that stayed with you. Known for her bold roles in movies like Black Widow and Bad Timing, she brought a sultry, enigmatic vibe that made her impossible to forget. With her striking features and daring performances, Teresa stood out in an era of larger-than-life stars. She wasn't afraid to push boundaries, and her sensual confidence made her a cult favorite among those who knew her work. Paulina Poriskova, with her piercing eyes and flawless cheekbones, was the kind of woman you couldn't look away from. A favorite of Sports Illustrated, she seemed to be everywhere in the late 80s, on billboards, magazine covers, and even your older brother's bedroom wall. Her fashion was a mix of effortless European chic and high-octane glamour. Whether in swimsuits that left little to the imagination or high-fashion couture, Paulina's presence was magnetic. Guys dreamed of her, girls wanted to be her,